There we go. Welcome all to
Hello.
episode 82. It's on a special day. It's actually exactly almost to the hour 3 years ago that we released Quarkus 2. No, sorry,
Uh,
Quarkus. What was the version? 00?
yeah,
Zero
060, no?
24, something like
Yeah.
Oh,
that.
yeah, maybe something like that. I started with 060 and then we increased. So, yeah, it was something like 0.24, the first public release.
Yeah, first
So,
public release, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Quarkus.
Happy birthday, Quarkus.
Third birthday, excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a third public birthday. We had some.
So yeah, we're at almost 10,000 stars on GitHub. We're at 600 contributors. I don't know the Maven stats, but they're
It's going up.
Yeah,
That's
there's a lot of downloads there. So
Yeah.
yeah, excellent community uptake. So yeah, thanks
Yeah.
everybody for all your support. It's been
We
amazing.
are at almost 30,000 pull requests and issues on GitHub. Because I just opened the
Wow.
29,400 something. I was like, that's a lot. No, I can't remember the tickets number anymore. Like 3 digits, that was fine, but now it's just like
that's too much. Yeah. And then we a bit delayed. Given the world situation last week, kind of made that we skipped last week because Thursday 2 weeks ago I was supposed to find because we had something planned that didn't happen, and then suddenly we had to find something, and that we didn't manage to do it because the world got other things to think about. So that's not great, but ignoring that little part of reality for a few minutes, we did do a Quarkus 2.7.3 bug fix release, and we're heading towards 2.7.2.8. No major things happening, but one thing we did want to catch up on was, RESTEasy Reactive was about announced a year and a half. There's a lot of stuff that happened in that area. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
There's a lot of stuff happening all across the board. So I think we're probably going to need more of these kind of like what's new with blah, 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 blah.
Definitely. And we actually have, my brain can't remember now, but we have like 6 sessions actually planned now. And at least 2 of them are things where we come back to stuff, to see what's happening. So that's there. And Guy Katz says he's in love with reactive systems in Java. Is that one of the people you paid to talk about your book, or?
Actually not, but I'm very happy to hear that. So for those who don't know, Reactive System in Java is a book I published last November with Ken Finnegan, and it's still very up to date. If you want to know why and how we did reactive in Quarkus, that book will explain you everything.
Awesome. So anyway, for those who are listening in, if you've been here before, you know the guideline rules, but let me repeat them, is that we will talk about a topic. This time is reactive. And if you have any questions, you just ask them in chat, and then we will try and relay them and get someone to answer, hopefully. And that's kind of, we go on for about an hour, and that's about it. So, Clement, Georgios, the floor is yours.
So let me share my screen first.
Okay. It was there for 2 seconds ago.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, let me know. Yeah, so you should see it.
There we go.
Well, just very, very quickly, three slides just to remind everyone what it means to be reactive. And
can you make the window full screen or something?
Yeah, sure.
Spending a lot of
button for that. So something to remind about Quarkus is that at its core, Quarkus is reactive. So there is, under the hood, there is Netty and Vertex, which do all the reactive things. And that means that on top of that, we have a set of IO threads. And why do we want to do this? It's because if you want to, under the load, to do things asynchronously, so building better distributed system, building reactive system and things like that, you need to have this reactive core somewhere. So under the hood, we have this reactive core and those IO threads, and we have very few of them. And these IO threads, well, there is 2 per CPU core, so it doesn't cost a lot of money memory and money if you are on the cloud, because well, it's not going to cost a lot of memory. On top of that, we have our extensions, and on top of that, we have your application code. And this application code can decide whether or not it wants to run on the IO thread or wants to run on a regular worker thread, what we will call the imperative model. So how do you decide? Well, actually, you can decide, but if you don't know, just let Quarkus decide. And basically, what Quarkus is going to do is looking at your code and decide for you if your business code need to be called on the IO thread. So that means you are writing some reactive code, passing continuation, using mutiny and things like that. Or if you are doing imperative code, and in that case, we will dispatch at the last minute the call on a worker thread and then go back to the right IO thread. So the thing is that Quarkus is doing that for you, but under the hood, everything is reactive. And today we are going to look a little bit at RESTEasy Reactive, as a RESTEasy Reactive client, so reactive REST client, and some of the extensions such as stock, but we will see that you can do both reactive and imperative on the same stack. So it's really what we meant when we said we want to unify reactive and imperative. So end of slides. It's time to do some code. So let's go to code.quarkus.io. I've prepared a demo RESTEasy Reactive. I have 4 selected extensions. So RESTEasy Reactive, Jackson, Hibernate ORM with Panache, JDBC, Hibernate Validator. So one thing is that if you look for RESTEasy here, you will find both classic and reactive. So be sure to select reactive. So that one is a classic one. Reactive, always mention it. So RESTEasy Reactive Jackson. So make sure to select this one. So I will generate this. Node. Okay. It's probably here. Oops. I will unpack it, extract. Okay, and it should be fine. Let me check. Nope, so not this one. This one I want. Okay, here, and I will just open the IDE and immediately go in dev mode. I trust the project, it's generated one. It's kind of funny that you need to trust it, so hopefully it will load. Okay. Okay, so here it is. It has started. So it's starting the Postgre dev service.
You need to zoom in a little bit because otherwise we will. I can make it a bit bigger.
I will make the font, the color a lot better. So it's would be yes. So that's one of the tricks you need to know when you use such kind of light.
While you're making your font bigger, we actually got a question from Jeremy Bresson saying, "Quark still using Jackson? I thought you guys have your own lib to convert to JSON without reflection."
Yeah, well, we use Jackson because that's like actually we support a lot of things when it comes to JSON handling, but we're demoing Jackson here because that's what like the huge vast of majority of the Java community uses, right? So we do have our own library called QSON for marshalling and unmarshalling JSON, which yes, correct, it does not use reflection. It based on build time generation of mappers, but the because it's all build time stuff that it has a lot fewer features than Jackson, right? So we're just using Jackson here because everybody's used to it. everybody's used to having like this huge feature set. But if your needs are covered by QSON, then by all means you can use it with RESTEasy Reactive.
Yeah, there is an extension for that. That's right. I could have used it, but the mapping we will see. It's easier to understand with Jackson. So application is started. Hello, RESTEasy Reactive. So this is just what's there, and so far nothing very fancy. But if I do something like that, current thread, I call this application back, we are called on a worker thread. So this is how you recognize that you're on worker thread. So it's an executor and so on. So far, no news. That's the same thing as you would do on classic RESTEasy, same worker thread and so on. The difference is that I can do this. I can say that this call is not blocking. And actually, yeah, it is, because it's just returning a string, so there is nothing blocking here. There is no blocking IOs or anything. And as soon as I do this, I'm now called on an event loop, and the event loops are the Quarkus IO threads. So this one I'm not allowed to block, because if I start blocking it by doing something like very slip, something like this. So I'm definitely blocking. If I do that, and now I go back here, it will, yep, see, you have, so it worked, but you have this exception that has been printed here saying that, hey, your thread has been blocked for 2,183 milliseconds. This is more than the 2,000 milliseconds that we allowed, so this is not right. So we have some warning, some automatic thread block, thread checker in your thing.
Just to be clear, does this actually block incoming traffic too, or is that a separate?
That doesn't block incoming traffic. That just means that this event loop is going to be blocked, which means that because you have not a lot of event loop, yes, you can block traffic if you blocked all of them. However, on my machine, I have 64 event loops, so yeah, that's. But in a container, definitely. So that's why we have such kind of thread checkers. So let's continue and do something else. I want to represent something in my database, and I'm going to represent cheese. That's a little tribute to Stefan. So this is an entity. I want to extend Panache entity and a cheese as a name. And let's say that we have a quantity, so something very, very simple. This cannot be blank. Yeah, that one. And this one needs to be greater min 0. Okay, so I have my entity here, and well, I will do cheese resource. Cheese, okay, and here's the beauty of RESTEasy Reactive is that I can still do that. Cheese dot list all, okay. So that will still work. There is no problem with this. I just need to say that it's a get. And if I go back here and I do cheese, I don't have any cheese right now, but it works. While this code here is definitely blocking, it's using JDBC. So that's not something I can execute on the IO thread, but because we use the right signature here, it will automatically go on a worker thread and everything will be fine. If I want to force it on the IO thread, I can use the non-blocking annotation as we did before, but if I do that, it failed immediately. It doesn't wait for the thread checker. It just realizes that this here is a blocking operation. You are on the event loop. This is not allowed. go away. So that's more or less what the issue is saying here. You have attempted to perform a blocking operation on an IO thread. So a few more things that can be done with RESTEasy Reactive is, well, I can get a single cheese. And here something I particularly like is that you can do /id here, one, and here I can just do long ID. I don't have to repeat myself to say, oh, this is a pass param, the name is ID, and so on. It just matches that this here is equal to this here, and it's fine. So here I can do cheese.find by ID. Okay, and if
so just so I'm slow here, but what you're saying is in normal RESTEasy you had to add annotation to the parameter, right?
yes, you need to do
path
param, and here you need to say this is ID. So basically you need to use an annotation, you need to repeat yourself. So you have ID here, ID here, ID here. Yeah, okay, ID is only 2 letters, but imagine if you have long query parameters, something like that.
Yeah,
That just,
for sure.
You not found exception, something like that. And just do that. I go back here and let's say, so this should be still empty. You should say not found because we don't have any, and I don't have any because we need to add some. And get add one, add valid. So this is bin validation. I want to add a valid cheese. And cheese.persist. So basically, right now, I didn't change anything. It used RESTEasy Reactive, but it's exactly what I would call or what it will use with a classic RESTEasy without having to repeat myself. So it's even better for this. I don't have to set incoming and going. It default to JSON. So this is very nice for all this. And I would just do that, and boom. So now if I do, I want to add some picodon. Yeah, you may learn a few new cheese today. I have 3 of them. Okay, and now if I go on one, oops, no, just one stream. It should not found.
When you did the post, the quantity was wrong. You said you did the Pascal assignment instead of regular assignment.
Oh, this?
Yes.
No, not found.
No.
No. It's a Pascal assignment, but I forgot one thing.
Well, it's not post, is it?
Oh, it's a post, but oops. Okay, so this was not expected. So let's see what he said. Error transaction required. Oh, okay, yeah, because we forgot one thing. It needs to be transactional. So again, it's the same flow I will use with regular RESTEasy, and boom, I got my picodon. And now if I go there, I get my picodon. And if I add another one, Reblochon, bless Reblochon, I only have one of them. And then if I do this, okay, and if I do that, I got both of them. So very, very similar to what you would do normally, but everything run on the core, on this IO thread, and so on. So what can we do to use a little bit more the reactive side of things? Well, I will go back here, and instead of doing that, I will show you a few things that you can do. So the first thing is that if you return a uni,
and Clement, just before you go into record, I think it's important to say that with RESTEasy Reactive, your user code do not have to be reactive
that's the whole point of this.
So we actually do recommend that even if you don't use the reactive part, do please use RESTEasy Reactive, because it was like the throughput is about 30% just by updating to RESTEasy Reactive.
Correct.
And I know that, that's a naming. It's hard to name things, but even today, like recently, someone was not using RESTEasy Reactive because they thought they had to be reactive.
Absolutely not. Look at this.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
code is purely imperative. It just decides for you that, okay, you just do one worker thread, I will call you on a worker thread at the very last moment, which means that you still get 30% improvement for free.
Exactly.
And we save you a few keystrokes because you don't have to repeat yourself.
And here's a question no one asked me about: how compatible, like if I have an existing application that is using the RESTEasy classic annotations, path, param, and stuff, will that still work? Or
if it's only using the JAX-RS annotations, like the spec annotations, yeah, it works because we pass almost the entire TCK. Like we didn't implement some of the really obscure features, stuff we didn't care about. But like if you use the RESTEasy specific annotations, no, those don't work. You need to convert them to our specific annotations, which we renamed because we actually thought that it made more sense. So in general, like you should just be able to switch to switch dependencies from Quarkus RESTEasy to Quarkus RESTEasy Reactive, and like almost everything will just work out of the box. Now there are some things that change, like the multipart support that I'll show later on, but it depends. Like if you're using only spec stuff, then you shouldn't have to change anything.
Okay. So in general, it's an easy migration.
Yes, very.
And that's it. So
what does it bring? So basically, if you want to see a little bit of the reactive side of things, so one thing you can do is to return uni directly. And here, so uni come from mutiny, and here if I do something, don't do that because that's completely useless, but if you want to do, I think you can do this. And we will see why I'm doing that, because later we will introduce a REST client, and that is better when you do this. Hello, /sync. And now, okay, it works, but here, one thing that is interesting is to do. And here, automatically, RESTEasy Reactive realize that, oh, you are returning in uni, so that means you are writing reactive code. So I'm not going to switch to a worker thread. I will continue on the IO thread, so to give you the max throughput that you can have. So this is actually very important, because what you can do is mix both inside the same application, my cheese and all this inside a single application, and you can decide which part need to go on the imperative path and which part can go on the reactive path. So if you realize that some of your endpoints are hammered a lot, landing pages or things like that, it can be interesting to switch to reactive only that small subset of endpoints, meaning that for these ones, you are going to save resources and increase your throughput, while everything that actually requires imperative or transaction and things like that will still go on the worker thread. So you can have mix them and get the benefits from both worlds in a single application. So remember that, because when we will use the REST client later, we will reuse that. Georgios, do you want to show the multipart now?
No, go ahead and do the REST client as well, because I'm also using the REST client there, so it probably makes sense to.
So I'm going to do going to go there and adding the REST clients. Oops. REST client reactive Jackson. Okay, this one is there, fine. Okay, and I'm going to do, I need a service to call, so I will do something very, very simple. I will do a my service here. This is application scoped, and I need to start something init at observe. Oops, at observe. Yes. Startup event. So that's how you get something started at the beginning of your application when the application starts. And I will just create another HTTP server. So normally it should be a different application, but here I just want to do the same thing in the same application, in the same process. Don't forget hello from the other service. Something like this. Something like that. Oops. Okay, so very simple. This is pure Vertex code. I'm starting another HTTP server. If you did some node, you will realize that it's a little bit something, and that's something that is not necessarily known, but if you want to have access to Vertex or to the whole underlying reactive parts of Quarkus, you can. So this Vertex instance here is actually the instance which is managed by which manage the Quarkus application, so you can do whatever you want. So if you prefer a root base or something like that, you can do everything. So now that I have that, I will just do a REST client, my service client. So it needs to do register. Oops. Okay. So that's something which is a little bit annoying in IntelliJ. Register. Yes. So normally I need to do that in the application properties, but that's easier to do that here for now. And I will show later how we can switch to Stork. And here I just want to do string get. Oops. Get. Okay. This is a get. And I can mix inside the same interface an async get. So this is a REST client. Obviously, you can use response. You can use whatever you want. You can combine them with fault tolerance. If we have time, I may show that to you too. But you can have methods that return the object directly, or methods which are reactive and return a uni. And under the hood, it's going to use an asynchronous and reactive HTTP client, which is provided by Vertex, but that's an implementation detail. Here, it will block the thread until it gets a response, imperative way. Here, it will not block the thread. It will invoke you or call your continuation, emit the items when the response is received from the service. Let's go back here. So I will inject my REST client, service client, and instead of doing this, I will just do async get. And normally, if I go back here and I do this should call my other service. Voila. Obviously, I can do get here. So I need to return a string. So it's no more async anymore. It's a remote hello, let's say. I should have turned, but that works again, except that this time it's calling that one. Oh, actually, I can show you it. That would be, oops. Async get. Okay, so I'm on a Nini. When you get the result, execute this. Called. Oops. Look. Called on thread, and I will just do something here. So to realize that we are going back on the same thread. And here, if I go back here, I do this. I need to go at the end. So because you return a uni, RESTEasy Reactive realizes that you can be called on an IO thread. So it's calling you on this event loop here, which is the event loop 22. As I said, I have plenty of them because I have a kind of powerful computer. And here, when we get the response back, we are going back on the same thread, which means that we are back on the 22 threads. If I switch to the blocking version, let me do. Oh. And now I do this, we will be called on a worker thread, as we expect, because the signature is there. So there is a few things which are actually interesting, is that if I do this, actually I never tried to. If you mark a method as transactional, it's actually going to call you on a worker thread because it's realized that you have a transaction. And because you have a transaction, there is a very good chance that you want to have the imperative model. So it's calling that one on the worker thread. However, because you are returning a uni here, and because this is a reactive REST client that you are using, here it's calling you back on an IO thread. Don't do that. Stay on one side or the other side. Mixing both it's only for demos or crazy people like me. But I'm trying to reproduce some very weird situations. But yeah, generally you won't do that. Yeah. So I think, Georgios, I will let you hand over for now, and then I will go back with a demo demonstrating a little bit Stork. And Stork only works with a reactive REST client. But again, you can use it in both reactive and imperative. So it just have reactive in the name doesn't mean that you need to do reactive.
Awesome. Thanks. So basically, I'm not feeling the confidence for live coding today that Clement did. So I'm just gonna show what I've already prepared. So basically, I wanted to show like a few features that folks might have missed from RESTEasy Reactive. First of all is multi-part support, right? Multi-part support is not part of the JAX-RS specification, but it's been like not everybody, a lot of people use it, and it's been highly requested as well, right? So we went ahead and implemented multi-part support both for the server and for the client. So let's see if I can share my screen. Can you see my IntelliJ?
Yeah, it's just tiny.
Tiny. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Oh, not big enough.
How about now?
It's okay. I'll give it full screen and then we can.
Okay.
There we go.
So basically, with multipart is about what, right? Multipart is generally about like uploading files, or like files plus other things from forms or whatever from web applications. So I'm just gonna show you what the client side and the server side look like at this point, and how easy it is to use multipart on RESTEasy Reactive. So you don't have to. I have an application here where I'm using REST client reactive and RESTEasy Reactive, both for Jackson, because I want to have some JSON support as well. So it's extremely simple, right? So I just have an endpoint here, which I'm calling like the multipart endpoint. And what I want to do is I want to consume a multi-part request. So for those who know what that means in HTTP terms, basically it's just like an HTTP request with various parts associated with it, and each part has its own MIME type. So the framework has to parse each one separately, things like that. This is like you don't want to try to do this on your own. So we want the framework to support that, and basically the starting point for that is this multi-part form annotation we have in RESTEasy Reactive, where you annotate a POJO, where the POJO has various fields, and each field represents a part of the HTTP request. And so we support various types, right? So like file, if when you're uploading a file, that means that when the server receives the file, we'll save it on the file system, and then it's up to you to like offload it to S3 or save it to a database or whatever. But it's super simple to receive that file in RESTeasy Reactive. All you do is just declare a type file, tell it it's a form type, and you just basically you'll for file it'll probably always be like an octet stream. You might want the file name. Also, you also might want to receive like a supporting JSON structure with various information about like what the file is or whatever. Here I'm just saying POJO with name value. And now basically this is just another the method that uses this, right, is just another JAX-RS method. So same as you would normally use: post, path, consumes, whatever. The consumes is a multipart, which actually I don't think we even need this, since the multipart form here is enough. And basically what I'm doing here is just I'm returning a string with a bunch of information about what we received, right? But we want to, first of all, we want to test this. And second of all, I want to show you also how this is done on the client side. So normally, the client side would probably be like a curl or like a form or some other like upstream service. But here, for demonstration purposes, I want to show you how we can also use the REST client that Clement showed that we have, the reactive REST client, to also upload a multipart form, right? So multi-part client basically is just again a REST client, nothing new. Again, with your path, you register the configuration, stuff like that, and all you do is here you say that what kind of what kind of information you want to send to the service. Again, you use this multi-part annotation, and just to demonstrate that these are normally part of like different applications, right? So I didn't want to use the same I didn't want to use the same class. So this is a different class, but it basically does pretty much similar things, right? It declares the file we're going to use, the file name, and some extra JSON. So all we're doing here is we declare this, right? And now the way we use it is that we are going in an endpoint here, a test endpoint, basically. We're going to receive some data. We're going to populate the client body, and the client body sends the multi-part request. And then when the server receives it, it'll receive it as a server body. RESTeasy Reactive will do all the unmarshalling and everything else, and it will return the result. And I have a test here that says multi-part test. So basically, I'm sending something. First of all, without the on the first test is that I'm not sending the file at all, and the second one, I actually forgot to add the files. But anyway, I could have I should have just added some bytes here. That's super easy to do. I forgot it, but we can fix that later. So basically, what we're doing here is we are trying to run the test, but something failed. So, okay, I removed the multi-part. I made a change here earlier that I guess wasn't correct. Yeah, consumes multi-part. So I'll run it again, and it should pass this time. All right. So basically, yeah, that was just like a whirlwind tour of how easy it is to create multi-part support for both server and client. Likely the most important thing for you is the server part, but there are cases where you would need to do this as a client as well. Now, what other stuff do we have that's interesting in RESTeasy Reactive? There's a bunch of small stuff like sprinkled across various releases. One thing that I wanted to show you is that now you can use our Spring support. So remember that Quarkus from very early on had support for Spring web annotations. but that was tied to RESTEasy Classic. Now you could use the Spring Web annotations with both RESTEasy Classic or RESTEasy Reactive. So in this case, all I'm doing is I'm declaring a super simple hello endpoint with Spring annotations. So you see all Spring here, nothing else. What I've added here is the Spring Web. So, but again, I'm using the same RESTEasy Reactive application, and my Spring Web test, all it does is that it sends a request to hello and expects hello back as the response, right? So that is this is just goes to show you that what we've done is we've introduced RESTEasy Reactive like across the board, right? Our entire extension infrastructure is now compatible with RESTEasy Reactive. What else? Also, yeah, that we have this feature that we call the. So when you're using Jackson to serialize your the responses, right, and you're using security, there are some cases, right, where what you want to do is that you want to return like a list of whatever fruit here. We're just calling it fruit, but depending on who is actually making the request, you might want um, to alter what data is being sent back to the user, right? So let's say if you're an admin user, you would want to see all the fields of this fruit, or if you're like a regular a simple employee, then you might want to not be able to see some of these fields when they're returned. Or if you're just a regular user, then maybe you can only see the name or something like that. So we've made that use case super easy to implement in RESTEasy Reactive. Basically, you use this new annotation called secure field, right? And this is Jackson specific, right? And it's experimental, so we want you to try it out and like play around with it and give us your feedback. So basically, what this says is that when um, a user requests, when the application gets a request for serializing this entity, or sorry, this POJO, then if the user that's requesting the from the endpoint is a manager or an employee, then they can return the ID field. Then they can get the ID field. Otherwise, this ID field will not be sent. Or with the description, if it's the description is only visible from managers. So what I've done here in my test is that I've added super simple security. Like this is only for test. So just the embedded security we have, which is basically just for testing. I've added two users, John, who's an employee, and Mary, who is a manager, right? And in my test here, what I'm saying is that first of all, when the user when there is no authentication, then this is this fruit resource isn't visible, which is what my test here for. So I will return 401. But for John, who is a user who's not a manager, he's just an employee. He wants to be able to see these fruits, but he will not be able to see the description field, right? So, and that's what this test does here. User with limited results. Basically, this is what you really care about, where the description is null, even though, right, the fruit itself always has a description because we only have two fruits here, apple and pineapple, and these are properly populated. Now, the final test here is a user is Mary, who is, like we said, who's a manager, can see all the fields. And the difference between this test here is that the description, the Mary can see the description as well. So if I run this test, the fruit resource test, then everything should just pass, like we said. And the final thing I want to show you is a sneak peek from a feature we have in Quarkus 2.8, right? So everything I showed you.
George,
yeah, go ahead.
You talk very fast. So we have a few questions.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Some about REST client that I think Clement will cover 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So we'll just go backwards here. There's one, I think Didi here was referring to
the secure field.
Secure field. Do you do this using Jackson introspection? I assume that's not tied to Jackson, but maybe
It is. Well, currently,
is.
yes, it is tied to Jackson. So this
Okay.
is we have a very deep integration into Jackson, and basically we are altering Jackson's serialization when this feature is enabled. So Jackson like has a huge number of integration points. So we're utilizing some of them in order to make sure that when Jackson actually writes out these entities, these POJOs, that certain fields are not included in the JSON that's being sent.
Okay. So this is the reason why we didn't use QSON, because we needed it.
Yeah, that's another reason. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's a great feature because it avoids having you to do data projection based on security role. Here you have a declarative way, which is much simpler and integrated with the role models that you have.
Yeah, for sure. And then this is way back, but this is like you showed uni with specific types. So Aaron just asked about it's recommended to use the custom return type of RESTEasy. I've done something like uni joke. Except the matter returns a type which does not convert to my custom joke. And I've seen this before where you do the mapping, but the exception stuff does not honor it somehow. But I'm not sure. I guess that's what Aaron is talking about. Is something you know about, or
that sounds like a bug? So please open one. We will reach 30,000 very, very quickly, but that looks like a bug. The exception mapper should be able to get your
Yeah,
entity.
as far as I know, it should work. But yeah, if you've encountered a case that doesn't work, then yeah, we definitely want to see that.
Yep.
Good. And then we got one just before here. This is from Mark Nuri. Because we talk about transactional, don't use that with reactive. I assume it's not the same with reactive but transactional.
Yeah, because there is reactive in the name, so you should use reactive transactional when you are returning reactive types. Yes, that's actually why we have this annotation. And why we don't. We use transactional when we do the reactive types. It's because transactional is, well, the definition, the semantic of transactional is defined by the spec, GTA spec, I believe, and doing it for reactive types will actually break the spec somehow. So it's not clean. So we prefer having two things.
Yeah, exactly.
Back
to you.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Back to you.
So no more questions?
No.
Okay, so last feature I wanted to show you real quick is something we're going to have in Quarkus 2.8. So basically, with Quarkus, we've had for a long time, we've had this extension called Quarkus like Hibernate ORM REST Panache or something like that, which basically allows you to take a Panache entity and expose it as REST without doing anything, right? Just with like this very simple, just extending one interface in there. There's various ways you can configure that. But what I wanted to show you here for Quarkus 2.8 is that we've extended that. And basically now you can use the exact same approach with Hibernate Reactive and RESTEasy Reactive, right? So in this case, all I have, let's say, is an entity and a collection. I have two entities called item and collection. They're both they're both Panache entities. And what I do here is that with I declare an item resource. So what that means is I'm gonna expose the item entity as a JAX-RS resource, a CRUD resource. So basically, I'll have all the save, get, delete, update methods exposed automatically using RESTEasy Reactive and implemented on the data side with Hibernate Reactive. So how do I do that? Super simple. All I do is I added this Hibernate Quarkus Hibernate Reactive REST Data Panache extension. Obviously, I already have the RESTEasy Reactive extension. I also add the Reactive PG client. I simply extend this Panache entity resource, and in my test, in my test, which is here. I want to see that, like when I'm doing a get for an ID of an item that doesn't exist, I'll get a 404. And if I do a get on an ID that does exist, then I'll get the name and the ID. The entities exist because I've imported them in the database. So when I go ahead and run this should all pass. So, but the meat here is that if you want a super simple CRUD, you don't have to write like any code, right? You just write your entities, you extend this interface, and boom, all the magic happens. Hibernate reactive, RESTEasy reactive, with almost zero code. And yeah, that's all I wanted to show you for now.
And it also honors the secure thing, right? The secure field.
Yes, if I had if in this here, let's say in the name I had added the secure field, yes, that would work exactly, because this uses Jackson again for the serialization. So that's a great question, actually, because it just shows you that all the pieces tie in together.
Nice. And then we just had Eric just had a follow up on the transactional. Is reactive transaction only be used for reactive data sources, or can be used with data sources but reactive REST endpoints?
So it can be used with, it's actually the Hibernate reactive that handle it. So it needs to use Hibernate reactive, which means using the reactive data sources. Except, because it's always depends, it's a consultant response here, except that there is a JDBC wrapper which exposes the reactive data source API based on JDBC driver. Don't use that in production. It completely doesn't make any sense, but for testing, it can be useful. We actually want to improve the support of this in the very near future. So, yeah.
Very cool. Okay. So, Clement, you have 8 minutes and to answer Abraham's questions about REST client, I think.
So I've seen the question about the REST client, and I found them very, very interesting. So let me know if you see my screen.
You are on the screen now, yes.
Okay. So first, what's a REST client? The REST client is a way to express your HTTP API on the client side without having to deal with any HTTP details inside your code. Because when you use a regular HTTP client, very quickly you have to handle all the HTTP things everywhere. And HTTP, actually, it's a complicated protocol. If you want to read HTTP 1, 1.1, and 2, the specifications are huge, very boring. It's really not easy read. And here, you don't have to do that. You just express, okay, that's the method I want, or I map them, and boom, you can use them everywhere. So it will reuse the same set of annotation you use for the server side. So get, post, accept, produces, consumes, all the parameter things, everything will be the same. The only thing is that it's an interface. You need to use register REST client. And when you inject it, you use the REST client qualifier. So in this demo, I'm reusing that. I've done 2 things. So first, you can use fault tolerance directly. So fault tolerance is a set of annotation which will protect yourself from failure. So the first thing is, do not do this without checking that your service is important. So this is very, very important. I see a lot of people using retry. Be careful, retry can be very dangerous, very risky, so be very, very aware. This is a highlight of this. I will still use it here because my service that I have 2. I have the Revolution service.
Just be clear, like that's more like for a post thing, right? Get.
Yeah, normally it's for the post things because get is considered safe. Yeah. Except that I've seen a lot of people doing unconditional write in a database on a get. So
sure.
It's so I have 2 services, Revolution, it's fine, and Picodon, which half of the time will fail. So and one thing I've done too here, so half of the time it's going to retry. But one of the things I've done here is that I introduce this URI here. This URI say, hey, I want to delegate the discovery and selection of my service instance to something called Stork, which is a service discovery and load balancing framework we did, and give me the service instance which is named cheese. So if we go to the application properties, you see that I have the cheese service, which is just a static list. And here I just have two addresses, that is Picodon and that is Roblochon, or the opposite. Obviously, here I use a static list, but you can use Consul, Kubernetes, Eureka, or whatever you want. So now if I run this, I just want to check the dispatcher here. It's on dispatch cheese. It's running. Oops, no, it's still not a stream. All right, Roblochon, 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 Picodon. Ah, this time the retry didn't work, but we got Roblochon most of the time because, well, Picodon is failing half of the time, so that makes sense. So if now I go there and I remove this, I just want to do that. Because I'm living closer to the Picodon place and Roblochon place, I will delay this. We'll delay this by 2 seconds. So getting a Roblochon will take at least 2 seconds. Now if I do that, Picodon, Roblochon, Picodon. So it works, but what I want to show now is this. This part of Stork is handling the service discovery. So that is going to say, okay, I have 2 instances of my service, one which is on localhost 8082, one which is on localhost 8083. Obviously, if you go to use Kubernetes, Consul, and so on, it's a dynamic list, and it will retrieve that and cache it. This part here is load balancing service selection part. I want the service which has the least response time. And that's actually key in the sense that you will always favorite the one which is the faster. There is a set of strategies provided by Stork. It goes from round robin, which is the default, random, which take a random one. We have list request, which takes the service which has the least in-flight request at a period of time. Power of 2 choices, which is an extension of list request, but take 2 random services and compare them based on the number of in-flight requests, and list response time. And it's also extendable, so you can write your own. So now if I have this, yes?
Yeah. So just Chris has asked, can retry be based on the response code? So
yes, of course, yes.
429, 2-minute requests, or any other response code, yeah.
So basically you can, where it is. You can write fallback, you can write things like that, but inside the retry annotation, you can actually pass a few things, and typically you can retry on, and here's that's the exception you need to retry on, or you can abort on. In that case, you don't want to retry anymore. That's anything. You can use fallback. And inside of fallback, that will be a method that, if it failed, will be called. That method can get must have the same signature and so on. So what you do in that case, you do response here. So HTTP response, and you can check for the types and not the types, the status code and things like that. Just to give you the proper type, yeah, JavaX WS core. So this one. Be careful that your fallback must implement exactly the same method signature. So if you have parameters, you need to have the same, and so on. That obviously works with Uni and so on. So there's nothing. If you want a circuit breaker, you just do circuit breaker. If you want a bulkhead, you just do bulkhead. So most of the well-known reliability patterns have been implemented that way. And so I don't know if it's in 2.7. I believe it's in 2.7. We also have an API, a programmatic API for fault tolerance now. So you can actually, if you can't use annotation, you can actually use the programmatic API of fault tolerance. I believe another insight has been scheduled just about that feature. I recommend you to read it, to watch it. Ladislav will give you lots of details about how it works and so on.
Okay.
So yeah, more or less that's all I have.
Good. We are in the top of the hour, so we have a few questions. I want to make sure
yes,
everyone.
go ahead.
So one was just Abraham, is REST client an easy replacement of Feign clients? And I guess it's the same space. It's not.
Yeah, the same idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. We're just using more, let's say, the same model as we do for our server side REST client. It's not a different one.
And it integrates a lot more things like Stork for service discovery and load balancing. So Feign has something, but it's Feign specific. Stork is not specific to that. We have fault tolerance, so it's really well integrated inside the Quarkus ecosystem.
Yeah. And then there's one of my favorite questions is there a way for us to generate this REST client interface from the server side so that our clients don't have to write it? So I believe you can just literally take the annotation register client and put it on the same as the server, and it will almost work.
Another way, which is a work in progress, but we're making a lot of progress, it's to actually generate the Open API. So we have an extension that will get the Open API descriptor and generate the client interface based on that descriptor. And that's a work in progress, which is probably going to land in maybe Quarkus 2.8, something like that. So,
and that's the key part here is that I don't actually think it's a good practice to take the server class file and make the client. It's actually a good thing to have separate ones so they don't, like, one moves before the other. But and then this basically your answered Chris's questions was it's a tool that takes open API spec and generate interface and data model for the client. I think there actually already is. It's just what Clement is talking about is we actually want to have it integrated into Quarkus directly, so it's part of dev mode. So when you change, you get the client and that way. So basically, there are different things out there, but I think the one that we will kind of recommend or go for is the one that's coming in 2.8 because it will just be there. There won't be any setup.
Yeah, I would like to have that in the dev UI too, so you can call your client directly from the dev UI. So there is plenty of work we want to do to make it ever more prominent. It's a great piece of technology, especially the reactive one. It has extensions that the classic one doesn't have. Stork, global headers and things like that. So yeah, it's something I'm really looking forward.
Yeah. And then I think there's a bunch of questions about like the URL can change, has to be local or can have full URL. It can have a full URL, I believe. Sure. And then I think he's referring because he wants to modify it to do like REST API contract testing, which yes, you can do so. And it's actually one of the things I hope we will also look into in the next some version of Quarkus to make that like super easy to do. And I think that's it.
So just about the contract testing, Swagger, I've seen this comment. Swagger contains most of it, but maybe not everything. So sometimes you must really write everything inside your Swagger. So your Open API descriptor. It's what Microx is doing, but sometimes you really have to rework which status, which format, and things like that. So it's not necessarily natural, but it's something we want to do too. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And then just so they ask about the Open API approach. So you should just I will have to search for it, but I know if you go on GitHub on Stack Overflow or GitHub discussions and look for Quarkus Open API REST client, it is there somewhere. That's the best I can do right now, at least.
There is a great comment from Eric. I don't know. Are you done?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
So in the superheroes application that Eric mentioned 2 weeks ago, something like that, or 3 weeks ago, I can't remember. We look for a 404, and so we have a REST client which returns a 404, and a 404 is not considered as a failure. yes, 404 is a perfectly fine response from the HTTP protocol point of view. It's not a failure. If you want to consider that as a failure, you will have to say, okay, I have a data model in between that say if I get a 404, I get null, then it's failed, and then you will retry on that level.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool.
Only 5 XX are considered as failures on HTTP.
Exactly. Yeah. 404 is a different one. Okay. Well, thank you, George and Clement. And I forgot what's the next week, but we do have something planned for next week. But yeah, I don't know. The world situation makes me I can't think straight anymore. So anyway, thank you guys, and for everyone listening, subscribe and follow and all that stuff. So see you around and have fun.